I learned about Alliance really through my friend Don Ankenbrandt, who has been in ministry for most of his adult life and probably been called to ministry for all of his adult life. When he left Young Life, where he'd been for quite a while, and started a ministry to reach out to people in various stages of their lives who had desires laid on them by God, and to really help those people utilize those desires by hooking those people up with other ministries that they may have gifts for, that they may have leanings to, or that they might like to know about. From there, it really kind of developed on God's timing and God's way. We took a lot of turns down a lot of roads. It turned out to be dead ends, some pretty short, some fairly long. But along the way here, God's really kind of developed this in the direction it's taking today. I have a fancy title, but I don't do a lot of the work. All the work is done by Don, really, and the rest of the board. My job, the way I see it, is to provide some counsel and some guidance and some financial support to the ministry, and to really kind of act a little bit as an objective umpire here, ruling things safe or out for them just based upon what I'm seeing. That has taken several forms. We've looked at merging with another ministry. I actually joined the board of that ministry, with an idea towards doing that. And God rapidly showed us that was a dead end, and so we pulled out of that one, cut that cord, and turned in a new direction. So that's kind of what I've done, but mainly is to coach things from the background a little bit, but I can't stress too much that that the work is done by the employees of the ministry, and it's pretty incredible. The vision of the mission really is to help people be who God wants them to be. Now that's a real nebulous description, but as we've learned over the years, both Don and myself, that God really, we even tell this to the younger kids coming to work in our company, that they have a gift. Their job is to find out what it is. And so really, what Alliance ends up doing is helping those people figure out what their gifts are in this realm, where somebody might have a secular gift for numbers or a secular gift for relationships, but find out where their spiritual gifts are and then actually use them. But use them in a real effective way, so they don't flounder around looking on the internet for somebody to give money to, or that they may or may not know, but in a way that'll be meaningful and impactful in a pretty efficient manner. So when it really, when you see somebody realize that gift, the joy that it brings out in them and the sort of effectiveness it gives to their work is almost an evangelical event for the people that know them. Alliance, sort of a, I guess, secondary result of the ministry is you end up with people coming to Christ, because the people that it supports, are a lot of times doing that through the people they support. That makes sense? In other words, you take the initiatives that we have through the 210 Project, and people finding that out, one of the gifts they discover is their gift of evangelism. And so, the word begins to spread by example, not by somebody standing in front of a crowd and giving an altar call, but by example, day in and day out. And, one of the things we've always talked about is that we all have our mission. We're all in the mission field. I just do it from a trading floor. Another guy does it from a doctor's office, and so forth. And Alliance really supports that, particularly at people who are at an age or position in their lives that have a great deal of influence. And I think that's where we've seen the most results. Well, yeah, our view of discipleship is that because we're in the world, but we're not of it, guess what? The world is going to be in your vision every day. And if you're not doing something to understand more about who you really are, then the world system is going to overwhelm you, their way of doing things. And as we all know, God's way of doing things is so contrary to that of the world, you'll end up down the wrong path. Paul refers to us as ambassadors for Christ. Well, I have a friend who is ambassador to Saudi Arabia, lives in Riyadh, is among the culture. Even the U.S. State Department recognizes the value of getting him out of that culture and back into ours for substantial time periods, or the culture will exert too much influence on him. That's exactly what we're trying to do here, is get people to understand what God wants them to do, and that way God's system of operation becomes predominant in their lives instead of the world's, because the world's will in absence of something like this. You know, there are a lot of ways to get involved. Probably the real gateway to this ministry is the 210 Project. And however, we have other groups of people that have gotten involved with the ministry, either taking the 210 Project and holding group studies with it, which is really the primary way. And those people are in different walks of life. It's amazing to me, having been in banking or the financial markets all of my life, how truly diverse the lives are of people doing other things. And so, you know, doctors have situations where they have other doctors and nurses and patients that they can minister to. People in the real estate industry, something similar. Then we've actually run into a couple of people who work with professional athletes. And you talk about a need now, there's a big space for a need there. And so the chief way that it looks like this is happening, the way that seems to make the most sense to God, is that these people go through the 210 Project and ended up leading a group through it. And of course, then God's principle of multiplication applies, right? Then those people end up leading groups, etc. You know, my role in the scheme of things, you know, is a little bit of teaching. I do some of that every week to a couple of groups, but really, you know, God let it be known to me early in life that, you know, His kingdom gets financed through other people, that He doesn't, you know, wake up with gold bars in the mailbox of the people who've given up their living in the marketplace to spread His word. And so I have, for whatever reason, been involved in several ministries, helping them with their finances personally, or helping others get involved with them financially, and so forth. And that appears to be one of the roles I'm most comfortable in the kingdom. I've taught a couple of different groups on God's economic principles, which we're in the middle of one of those right now, as a matter of fact. And it's a pretty, what's the right way to put it, difficult subject for our system, or for us today, mainly because God's way of doing things financially is so counter to that of the world. And that's a big deal. And so I play a little bit of that role with Alliance, and I play a little bit of that role with some other ministries as well. It has become obvious to me in the last 15 years of my life, dealing with Alliance as well as with what I do every day, day in and day out in my office, is that we all have a purpose. And one of the true tragedies is going through life and not finding that purpose, not looking for it. I've found that you can't sit down and describe what it is, that you actually have to go through life day to day in search of it. Meaning everything that you do, you pay attention to what's going on. What do you like? What are you good at? Where do you have, as our previous speaker would say, where do you have an unfair advantage? Where has God given you a gift that He hasn't given to other people, so that you can plug in and do that? And that really is what Alliance is all about, is helping people really understand what that is at a time in their lives where it's critical. And I think all of the really good feedback we hear from Alliance comes from that. Whether they're kids graduating from college or still in college, whether they're people who are middle-aged, whether they're people who have sold their businesses and are on the verge of retirement trying to figure out what to do with their life, that's where the value, I think, really gets added and has really made a difference for God's kingdom.
If you know of a ministry that we need to know about, please give us a call, 888-641-8606, or take a look at our website, revelationstv.org.